today I'll be presenting why should be using games in education. Well, historically, games have seen as a distractive and addictive form of entertainment who's been stigmatizing all its players. But the recent indicators in economy show that the game industry has been growing, and up to 2025, it will reach $300 billion of investment and worth. The big question of the marketing is how we can implement these game mechanics and features in other areas so we can utilize the sense of connectedness and enjoyment that are explored by the games. Well, in education field, there is a recent trend of experimenting using pedagogical games in order to build this motivation and engagement, such as papers published by James Paul G and Jin Yong. But some people are still reluctant to accept this as a resource of valid pedagogical method. So, what is gamification? In a broader sense, gamification is when we use game design elements in non-gaming scenarios, which not necessarily means that it will be used for pedagogical purposes, but you have to use the gaming mechanics. Okay, but for the purpose of this project here, I would like to be discussing game-based learning, which is the utilization of full games, but not necessarily the gamification mechanics to achieve learning objectives. Okay, some of the game-based learning applications might include custom design games in order to deliver your lesson plans in your classes. Okay, why I'm advocating for role-playing games? So, role-playing games are simulation games where players have free action of movement, where they build up together a narrative coordinated by a game master or GM. While they are exploring and developing this narrative, the players have free choice of movement, free choice of will, and the outcomes of their decisions are measured by dice rolls. Okay. Pedagogical uses of RPGs were defended in papers such as Cook, Rimmer, and Morgan in 2017, when they proposed the connection of the two fundamental concepts in the research: social constructivism, based on Wells in 1999, and the game-based learning concept we discussed before, because this is a very useful and powerful tool to build knowledge through collaboration, and they can use the RPGs as the mediation game. They can explore and learning while they are playing. G also mentioned that the notion of game-based learning is extremely important for the students, so they can learn from the mistakes in a safe environment, while they can also reflect and they can see immediately the impact of their decisions, and they keep trying. They can keep this while they're playing. They can keep trying. They can keep implementing their own elements of gameplay while they are learning. Okay, it's also important to say that the RPGs, they can create very good opportunities for the students to reflect and to make meaning from what they are learning. Okay. And as you can see, this is also a great opportunity to assess for, as, and off learning. And also we can create various diagnostic assessments while we are designing the activity itself. So now I'm going to show you the resources we'll be using for this project. It's a software called website, free open source, called Roll20. Some of the activities will be developed on Google Classroom, and we'll be using the Victorian curriculum as well. So here you can see the template of the Roll20 website. I'm logged in my account. As I said, it's free to create. So my idea is for the students to design and create their own games. We're drawing from the VCA curriculum, Foundation to 10. It's better to start designing your lessons according to some sort of descriptors. And for instance, I'll be choosing here the year 7 in history, in which they investigate about, for example, the ancient world. Maybe let's get some ancient Rome or ancient Egypt. We can also link with the descriptors in the digital ICT technologies resources. For example, investigating how digital systems can represent text, image, and sound data binary. And due to the aspect of the gaming, the RPG games itself, we can also withdraw from the critical and creative thinking component of the curriculum, especially selecting how to investigate the difference between description, explanation, and correlation and skepticism about cause and effect, which they will be exploring while they are playing. With the criteria selected, you just have to design a template and start building your own RPG adventure. So here it is. As soon as you log in, you can design a name for your virtual simulated world, and then you can upload maps that will link to the physical reality. So this, for instance, would be the home of the characters that might be connected or not to a fantasy world. That's up to the role play you'll be developing. And as soon as they enter, for example, physical portals, they will be transported into a fantasy reality world where their main characters can have powers, can have special abilities, and they will be developing and growing as, for example, angel gladiators, fighting for a coliseum and try to control the problems in this physical fantasy reality world. The possibilities are endless, and while you're developing this, you can investigate special characteristics in a physical reality. You can promote, you can upload all the images, all the photos, you can drag them around, and more especially, you can design the activities inside of the game, which will be an interesting perspective. While they be playing, they can also perform some sort of tasks in cooperation and add information into their character's profile, where they can play accordingly to some sort of traits and characteristics and play along. And you can set all the characteristics according to the meta language necessary for your components of curricula. Then, as a second part, you have to design a Google Classroom in which you'll be setting all the game rule mechanics, all the rubrics for this project, and especially what I like calling the Adventure Player Book, which will be a set of written register part of the narrative they will be building and discussing. The more interesting aspect of it is you have to leave one of the columns of your rubrics to be set with the students, because you don't know necessarily which components of the story they will be developing to. Since it's an open world simulation in a virtual reality open world, some of the criteria might be differentiated according to the group's will. So, as a final reflection, I would like to mention that the popularity of games is undeniably too big to be ignored, and asking yourself how students can spend hours of their days playing and actually learning how to play a game, which is the learning curve, demonstrates that we should be trying to identify the benefits of the game learning curve, also used as an educational tool. Thank you very much for watching my presentation, and these are my references.